QAM, it is Talk Wichita, 721-8255-721-TALK.
All right, thank you very much. I am Robin Lace with Real People, Real Life here in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm honored, so honored to have Dan Heflin for Wichita Mayor. Wow, gosh. I put something on Facebook last night, and it just blew up with questions.
I experienced that, yes.
I saw you. I know you saw that. So let's. We've got a lot of topics to get to immediately. So this is in no specific order, but one thing I would like for you to clarify your position on WSU football.
Well, yeah, I've stated that quite a few times on some of my commercials that I'd like to see WSU football return. And what my vision would be is to have football back as a primary sport with Division 1A. Do we get there immediately? Probably not. I was told by Dr. Bardo that if we bring $400 million to the table, he'd put a team on the field. Now, it's a big number, but it also brings up other sports because we got a balance for women's sports as well.
Right.
And I'm really thinking that's probably a great idea, but can we do that 100% right up front? What I would like to do is put a referendum for a sales tax. Now, I don't like sales tax myself.
I know you don't, yeah.
But one thing, if we want to do something for our community that we'd all agree upon and put it out there one time.
Right.
If we put a half-cent sales tax for 10 years, that would generate that kind of money. If we decide not to, then we're done. We'll
Right.
never talk about WSU football again. Let the citizens decide and tell Wichita State, we're ready to put up or shut up.
I agree. I agree with that. Another thing that I know is very near and dear to your heart, and that's the Children's Hospital.
Absolutely. My wife is a pediatric hospitalist.
Wow.
Which means she actually is a physician. She works in the hospitals, and she's telling me about all the kids that she sees that she has to ship off to Kansas City to get the care that they need. And we don't have, one, the facility, two, the specialists that come with that facility in order to care for the kids. Now, sometimes these kids are coming from western Kansas. They come here, then they're off to Kansas City.
Right.
That really divides a family that they can't. Sometimes these kids are in the hospital for weeks,
Exactly.
and weeks and maybe months at a time.
Correct.
And so they're out of touch with their family, their support system. If it was in Wichita, it'd be a lot closer.
Right.
And we don't have the facility for that. Now, I'd say a dedicated, independent children's hospital, meaning a building that is only a children's hospital. It's independent of the hospitals that we have now.
Right.
They may contribute to it. They supply doctors and the needed facilities outside of that. But it would need to be independent. Now, Wesley's talking about doing it within their hospital. I'm optimistic that may work out. I'm yet to see how all the plans will make that happen. But I really think we need the long-term goal is to have an independent facility.
I would love to see that. Okay, let's jump now over to economic incentives. That's always a tough one.
Yeah, and I call them economic incentives only because it entices. Really is a tax plan. Property taxes on new development get charged immediately.
Right.
So if you double your facility, your taxes will double
Right.
on day one. That means you haven't had a chance to incorporate all the changes that you've done, make profit with it, but the city, county, state, and school all get their profit on day one.
Right.
And you're trying to make profit off of your property, and,
Exactly.
and they've got it.
Yeah, they've got the bottom line, and you're over here kind of like in the red. Okay, I definitely agree with that. And I know.
Let me explain that just
Yeah.
a little bit further, if I could.
Please.
What I would do is take the amount of property tax that you're currently paying, you do the improvements, and you have a certain amount of increase, right? Like you started with $100,000, you invest $400,000, you have a $500,000 property. You still pay the taxes 100% on the $100,000. Then that increase, you pay 20% the first year. 40, 60, 80, to 5 years you pay 100% of that tax. But gradually get that in so you can build your facility into the profit center that you want it to be.
Right.
You don't figure on making profit off of that investment right off the bat.
Right.
So why should the city make profit off of your property right off the bat?
I agree, and as a small business owner, I think that would help a lot of us.
Well, in some basis, how are you going to pay for that? Well, if that investment is not happening,
Right.
well, there's no taxes to be collected.
Right.
This would entice people to make that investment. Sure, they're going to have some investments that already happen, and that would fall under that. But everybody that does development would qualify for it, and there's no qualification. If you've done 20% of improvement on your property, bang, you're in.
Right.
And you have to apply for it. No paper to fill out. It just happens.
I like that. I like it when things happen. Jobs. Gosh.
Well, that is the jobs.
That's part of it. Exactly.
That is my jobs plan. A mayor, city councilman, if they tell you they're going to create jobs, they're lying to you.
Thank you.
All we can do is create an environment where jobs can happen. That means that the people that have businesses can invest and produce more. They produce more parts, more jobs come with it.
Right. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Another thing that I really like is your position on Century 2. Can you explain that?
I've grown up with Century 2.
Me too.
I'm just a little bit older than it, probably about 5-6 years, and I was born basically at the centennial of Wichita. I was born in 1963, centennial 64, 65. It was planned during the centennial of Wichita. That's why it's called Century 2. It's our second century. It represents our vision of the future. It looks like a flying saucer because we have aviation in our blood, and they were thinking that that's probably the future of aviation. I don't know what they're thinking.
The Jetsons.
But, yes, the Jetsons.
Yeah.
But it's our icon. It has everything to do with what we are because all of our logos, all of our symbols, all of our skyline is Century 2. And yeah, it's probably outdated. It probably needs some changes. It probably has to be to move the stages a little bit, make the trucking ramp. But the design of it is so inspirational.
It is.
If you actually look at the floor plan, it's actually a peace sign.
Yeah, I know. I know. How cool
Most
is that?
people don't realize that, but it's the 60s when it was.
When it was a cool thing. I know. I grew up with Century 2, and I've been to so many events there over the years that I think let's remodel it, just add a little bit.
And I'm just afraid that what really is happening here is that we've got some developers that really have it on their target. Well, I want to replace it because I want that contract, and you know what? That's not who I am.
All right. Thank you.
This campaign is being funded by myself.
Right.
I have no outside funding. I chose to do that because I didn't want outside influences. And I've done quite a bit. I've saved up quite a bit of money.
Right.
So I can challenge and be up there with some of the big guys. I'm probably third in the amount of spending going on. I don't have the big money, but then again, they have the big pockets behind them that are going to influence their decisions. I will not. I
know, and I appreciate that. I'm a firm believer in you cannot buy my vote, no matter how much money you raise. Working with local neighborhoods, I really admire you in doing that. I think that's very important.
Well, yeah, I'm my neighborhood association president. It kind of happened as, I wanted to get involved. We have a neighborhood cleanup every year, and I knew that's one thing our neighborhood association did. So I went up I said, well, I want to help and I want to volunteer. Next night, I know there was an election and I'm elected. and since then, I keep going on and being the neighborhood association president. But the more I do it, the more I get involved. Just starting to really get involved with WIN, the Wichita Independent Neighborhood Association.
And I really like those folks.
And they're great folks. James Roseborough, a friend of mine, and he runs the president of that organization now. And I like what they're doing. I love the neighborhood cleanups because it really does get out and clean up our neighborhoods. When I first came to Wichita as a kid and experienced some of the trash that goes on that we just didn't have a handle on. Now we have a handle. We can control that, and we have a really decent looking city because of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot better, and I want to thank Wichita Independent Neighborhoods for all the things that they do as well. Transportation, and everybody that I have talked to loves your idea on the buses.
The WTA is losing money hand over fist every day, every year, and I think the problem I see, the biggest thing with it was when they raised rates, they killed it.
Right.
The people that were using it couldn't use it because that's their dollars were gone. So, and it was a pretty substantial raise. You don't do that in business.
Right.
If you want to run this like a business, run it like a business. And some of my ideas are, take some time in the middle of the day where it's not being used, put people on it, and give it free. If people use it, they'll use it more.
Right.
The more they use it, the more they get comfortable with it. The more they're
Right.
comfortable with it, the more they use it when they have to pay for it.
That's right.
And so I've proposed, we have to look at the numbers for sure, but between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Now that also kind of gives you the guys that are downtown,
Yeah.
working in downtown, they could grab the bus, go out to a restaurant and come back for their lunch period, still on that free time. They get used to using it. Maybe then they take it into work for,
Yeah,
you know.
there you go.
So if you do those kind of things, that's a marketing plan. I have self-storage. We give a free month. We
Right.
get some in, and they start paying for it after that.
Right.
And sometimes they move out after the first month, but hey, it's the chance we take to get them in, to get them in our business, and then we can use that as a revenue through the future.
Right.
The other thing is, you will show up at the bus stop, you don't know where that bus is.
I know.
And if we had an app on your smartphone that you could look up with a GPS that says this bus is 3 blocks away and you're in the store, I better hightail it and get to the bus stop and
Correct.
get on the bus and then move on.
Right.
Now, a lot of people also tell me that they need to have a time system on the buses. You can expect them. That would kind of eliminate that needs if you at least knew where they were.
Right.
And if you knew they were 3 miles away, you can go out and do your shopping, get everything done, or you're at the house and you can get your last little cleanup done and then get out there and get to the bus right on time because you know where that is and you know where you are relative to it.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous idea.
And the last thing about that would be to have a frequent rider program where if
Yes.
you ride 10 times that you paid for, you get the 11th one free. Now, I mean, how often you have frequent flyers?
Right.
Why
would we
don't
not do
we
that?
do this like a business?
Thank
Businesses
you.
do these things.
Right.
If you ride it 20 times on the free times, and you get one of the pay times free.
Yeah. Common sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Now, give me a little background. I'm a design engineer.
Right.
I design everything. I design the way I go into a Quick Trip. Yes.
I believe that.
I look at the door. I said, no, I'm going to go to the left. Okay, I'm going to go in the door that opens me to the left. Okay, that's the same kind of things you need to do with a city. Do the things that make sense so that you don't get in your way. Don't
Right.
put the door in your way.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't put a brick wall up and then ask how to get around it.
Right.
Unbelievable. Common sense. I think that's one of the things. I watch all these debates because I'm kind of a political junkie, I guess.
Well,
I'm sorry, but I am.
Some of us are.
I am, but I'm also a very concerned citizen, and I really think that people are maybe tuned out sometimes when it comes to our local elections, and this is so important
This is probably one of the most important elections we've had
in a long time.
in a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of the issues that are facing us are going to have impact for 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years
Correct.
in our future.
Right.
Especially stuff like our water program that we've been dealing with. Now, we had a crisis a couple years ago.
Correct.
We don't really have a crisis. I've talked about
We've
that
talked
a little
about
bit,
this, yes.
and I don't want to put out too much because there's some things in the background that really led to that nobody's really been disclosed to. And if we were to take a nice slow look at how we would solve a water problem, my proposal as an engineer, if you had the perfect ASR system, you would put it at the bottom of a dam, take the water, filter it, and send it right down to the aquifer. Now, we don't have a dam in that situation. We can't put one because the Little Arkansas River is very, very flat.
Correct.
And so dams don't work in flat situations.
Right.
But not more than 20 miles away, we have a nice river,
big one.
a nice big lake that we own a third of the water of. And we can take that water in high times and we can put a channel, bring it over to the aquifer, then put it in a pipe and then filter it. And then we can make that use of that ASR instead of 7 to 10 days out of the year, which we're currently doing, only when the Little Arkansas River floods. We can do it probably 100 days out of the year from Cheney, and maybe more.
Right. Common sense again.
The engineers tend to be that way. They look for solutions. Politicians look to say, to look good.
Right.
I don't want to look good. I want to solve problems.
Right.
Now, I do want to be the best mayor Wichita's ever had.
Oh, yeah.
And I've said this in a debate before, if you don't have that vision, you don't want to be the best mayor ever, then don't do it.
Thank you.
You should not be in this. That's everybody that runs for mayor and is mayor. That should be their goal every day.
Right.
Am I being the best mayor Wichita ever had?
I admire the passion, believe me, and I would love to see that.
The passion is, my cards say it best. All my handouts, and I'm passionate about Wichita. I came here in 1982 to go to school, go to Wichita State. My goal was to be a wind tunnel model designer.
Oh wow!
Because I built models, and what inspired me was a weekly reader, and the 747 was on there, and I looked at that thing, and it's the most biggest airplane ever. I'm like, wow, I got to build that. Then I read the article, and it talked about how many wind tunnel models they had built in order to test that airplane to put it in the air. It says people can build models and make money.
Right.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while. I actually interviewed at the facility in Boeing in Seattle.
Wow.
And they turned me down because, Dan, you're too hands-on. We're not sure you can keep your hands off of the tools because they're a union shop.
Yeah.
And so I had to walk away from my dream.
Oh.
But I became a design engineer anyway, and I've worked on some of the best airplanes out there working for Cessna. I've actually I had an interim job in Kansas City. I designed blow molds. That's how plastic bottles get made. These little water bottles here.
Right.
We designed the Nike airbags for all the shoes.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Oh, we've never known that. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those are actually blow molded and then stuck in the shoe. Those are the only part of the shoe that's actually made in the United States.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm glad to see that we're making something again in the United States. We talked about, taxes, and that's always a tough one. The recent sales tax, and I covered that on both sides. Okay, but I think that if it would, there again, there's something called a clean bill. If you want to, like you were talking about the WSU, we know exactly what it is. Don't group 20 things in together.
Right. Well, I have problems with a tax on something that you already pay a fee on.
Right.
Now, if we want to pay more for water, okay, we probably should protect the bottom level so that our basic needs for water is covered. And if you need to water your lawn, you know what? You're going to have to pay a little bit more to water your lawn a lot.
Yeah.
I should not have to go to the grocery store, pay an extra sales tax so somebody can have cheap water to water the lawn in the middle of a rainstorm.
Right, and I've seen that. Believe
Yes.
me, I've seen that a lot. Fix your water sprinklers, kids.
And I have, the sales tax being bundled. I don't know that so much bothered me, and it did, bother me. But the issues that were on it were just so unnecessary, and the way they sold it. They went out and they basically were trying to say, what can we do for you that would get a sales tax? And the sales tax was first.
Right.
Then they said, well, what do you want to spend it on, and what would be good for you? And it just seemed very disingenuous to me.
I agree. Yeah, it really did. Another big issue that we face here is our homeless situation. That's a tough one.
It's a tough one because, I have a shop down on North Market, and with the self-storage, I get homeless guys come, hey, can I clean your this, and can I mow your lawn? And it's tough to say no.
I know.
Because, I got guys for that, and they need things to do too. Wow. I was at a thing with a North Riverside Neighborhood Association. And they had representation by the homeless task force.
I saw that.
Three guys. And those three guys do the entire homeless population in Wichita. One of the things that they do is get their needs and assess resources that fit their needs and help these guys.
Right.
We need to strengthen that task force. This task force was organic. These guys formed it themselves, saying, I'm keep arresting the same guys over and over again so that they can have a warm place to sleep.
Right.
Well, maybe I should get them a warm place to sleep and I don't have to arrest them.
Right.
And so they went and got the training. And I think it's a wonderful, they're going to do cross-training. They're going to get more of their guys on the police force. I think they're going to start solving problems.
I agree.
Now, the mayor said he wants to solve, by the end of this year, the homeless problem for veterans. Now, I think you should not make promises of that kind of scale. Now, maybe he was trying to set one of us up who became mayor.
Right, I know, right?
So, hey, I promised we're going to fix it, and they didn't do it. but you can't fix a moving object.
Right.
You have to. You can address it. You can make it better. But fixing it is not going to be what you have. You really have to address it one-on-one for each individual as they come about.
Right. It does change. It changes for the individual, but you know, I've done a lot of work with veteran groups, and that's pretty.
Right.
And a lot of
It's
these are
very
homeless
important.
vets. You know, that's the sad part. And then the other thing is a lot of them are families, and some of our shelters are not set up in order to take the children.
Right.
So now we're having families being separated. But the task force, I'm very proud of the job that they have been doing.
Yes, and they have a card that you can go to the substations and you can get the card, and somebody approaches you and says, "Hey, I'm on a job." Get a stack of those cards and hand it to the guy and say, "Here, these guys will help you. Call this number."
Right.
And
Yeah, I need to go get a stack of those cards because I have a business downtown too, and we do see a lot of it. I know you do in your location. I know
Right.
I do in mine, but I do think the task force is doing a fantastic job. But yeah,
make it stronger. Support those guys in doing what they're doing, because they are doing the front line
Right.
of our job